Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into the world of traditional cooking fats. Have you ever stood in the kitchen, wondering whether to reach for tallow or lard? They might look similar, but they have distinct differences that can totally change your dish. By the end of this video, you'll be a pro at knowing exactly which fat to use and when. So, let's get started and unravel the mystery of tallow versus lard. First up, what exactly is tallow? Simply put, tallow is rendered animal fat, but specifically from ruminant animals like cows or sheep. The raw fat, called suet, is found around the kidneys and loins of the animal. To get tallow, this suet is slowly heated in a process called rendering. This process melts the fat and separates it from any remaining bits of meat or tissue. The liquid fat is then strained, and as it cools, it solidifies into the hard, waxy substance we know as tallow. Traditionally, beef tallow is the most common, and it's been a kitchen staple for centuries, long before modern cooking oils came onto the scene. Now, let's talk about lard. Lard is also rendered animal fat, but it comes exclusively from pigs. Different types of pork fat can be used to make lard, and where the fat comes from on the pig affects the final product. For example, leaf lard, which comes from the fat around the pig's kidneys, is considered the highest quality. It's very neutral in flavor and prized for baking. Just like with tallow, the raw pork fat is rendered by slowly heating it until it melts. The liquid is then strained to remove any solids, and it cools into a soft, creamy white fat. Lard has been a cornerstone of many cuisines around the world, from European pastries to Mexican tortillas. One of the most immediate differences you'll notice between tallow and lard is their texture. At room temperature, tallow is quite hard and almost crumbly. If you try to scoop it with a spoon, it will break off in solid chunks. This is because it has a higher percentage of saturated fats, which are solid at room temp. Lard, on the other hand, is much softer. It's smooth, creamy, and easily scoopable, almost like the consistency of soft butter or shortening. This difference in texture is a big clue about how they'll behave in your cooking, which we'll get into next. Let's talk flavor and how these fats perform in the kitchen. Tallow, especially beef tallow, has a distinct, savory, beefy flavor. It's not overpowering, but it definitely adds a rich, deep umami note to whatever you're cooking. This makes it absolutely fantastic for frying things like potatoes or searing a steak. It has a high smoke point, around 400 degrees Fahrenheit, which means it can get really hot without burning or breaking down. This is why it makes for incredibly crispy and delicious French fries. Lard's flavor profile is generally more neutral and subtle compared to tallow. It has a slight, clean pork flavor, but it's mild enough that it can be used in a huge variety of dishes without dominating them. High-quality leaf lard is especially prized for its neutrality, making it a baker's dream. Its unique crystal structure creates incredibly light and flaky pie crusts and pastries. Lard's smoke point is a bit lower than tallow's, around 375 degrees Fahrenheit. But it's still excellent for frying, sautéing, and, of course, baking. Now, let's look at the nutritional side of things. Both tallow and lard have gotten a bad rap in the past, but they are making a comeback as people return to more traditional ways of eating. Tallow is primarily composed of saturated and monounsaturated fats in roughly equal amounts. It's also a good source of fat-soluble vitamins, D and E, especially if it comes from grass-fed animals. Lard, surprisingly to some, is actually higher in monounsaturated fat than saturated fat, the same kind of fat celebrated in olive oil. It's also one of the best dietary sources of vitamin D, second only to cod liver oil, particularly if the pigs were raised outdoors with sun exposure. So neither is unhealthy when used in moderation as part of a balanced diet. The history of these fats is fascinating and tells a story about our culinary past. For centuries, before the rise of industrial seed oils, tallow and lard were the primary cooking fats in many cultures. Tallow was a staple in European and American kitchens, used for everything from frying to making candles and soap. its long shelf life made it incredibly valuable. Lard was equally important, especially in pork-loving cultures across Europe, Asia, and the Americas. It was essential for preserving meats in a process called confit and was the secret to tender tamales and flaky biscuits. The shift away from these fats in the 20th century was more about marketing and industry trends than about their usefulness in the kitchen. So, to wrap it all up, how do you choose? It really comes down to what you're making. If you want a deep, savory, meaty flavor and need a high heat for frying or searing, tallow is your best friend. Think steak, French fries, or roasted root vegetables. It adds a richness that's hard to beat. On the other hand, if you're baking and want an incredibly flaky, tender result, reach for lard. It's perfect for pie crusts, biscuits, and tortillas. It's also a great all-purpose fat for general frying and sautéing when you want a more neutral flavor. Ultimately, both tallow and lard are fantastic, natural fats that can bring incredible flavor and texture to your food. There's no better one. They just have different strengths. I hope this helps clear up the confusion between tallow and lard. Experiment with both in your kitchen and see which one you prefer for different dishes. They're a delicious link to our culinary heritage. Thanks so much for watching today. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more content like this. Let me know in the comments which fat you prefer to cook with. See you in the next video.